Well, the reason that Jesus is not an angel is because he begins to exist in the womb of his mother, and that's what Matthew 1:18 says this. He began to exist. That obviously tells us that he didn't exist before. You cannot come into existence if you're already in existence. So if we're going to talk about the so-called preexistence of Jesus, and that word preexistence belongs much better in discussions of medical history, not in theology. It's a kind of a fog word. You cannot exist before you exist. And so pre-existence really doesn't mean anything. Unless, of course, you're thinking that Jesus existed as God or an angel in the past and transformed himself into a fetus. Now that's a completely different story. But that contradicts Matthew and Luke flat out, because they both say this is how Jesus began to exist. And the story is clear, by virginal begetting, by miracle. So the idea that Jesus is a so-called pre-existing angel, that he had a prehistorical existence as an angel, is really amazing, because Hebrews chapter 1 expressly says, in fact the whole argument is, that Jesus is superior to angels. No angel was begotten, and yet Jesus, the Son, is begotten, was brought into existence. Now angels are certainly created, but they're not begotten. That being the word which describes the coming into existence of a human being in a human mother. Furthermore, the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament is clearly not the Son of God in a pre-human life. We find that the angel of the Lord is described as an angel of the Lord in Acts 7. Stephen refers to the angel who appeared to Moses at the bush. It's an angel of the Lord. Now, if Stephen really believed that this was the Son of God pre-existing, he would have said that. He would have been the angel, the one and only angel perhaps, or it would have been the Son of God. Nothing about that. It never occurred to Stephen that the Son existed before he began to exist in the womb of Mary. So you have a radical contradiction if you begin to talk of an existence before an existence. Who pre-exists who exactly? What happens when a person ceases to be that person and begins to be somebody else? This is very, very complicated and led to the very abstruse and ultimately incomprehensible arguments about two natures, by which people felt that Jesus was somehow 100% God and 100% man. And yet when you unpack it, you find that the 100% man is really a body only. Because once you ascribe personality to that body, then you've got two persons in the Trinitarian theory. You've got a person with a body, that's a human person. You've got another person who pre-existed that wasn't human. This becomes a very tedious and very exhausting argument. We don't need that. Mrs. X, reading her Bible, can read it much better and through Hebrew eyes, Hebraic eyes we might say, by simply seeing that the Messiah is descended from David. So he's the son both of David and of God and of Mary, and at a greater distance he's the son of Eve. He is indeed the descendant of Eve, the seed promised to Eve. In Hebrews 1, you wouldn't argue that Jesus is superior to all angels, superior to Moses, superior to the Levitical priesthood, if you think he's God. The writer did not imagine that, being a good Jewish unitary monotheist. He didn't imagine that. He simply has to argue that Jesus is superior to other human beings. And that's exactly what's said by Psalm 110:1. We keep going back to that psalm because that will solve all problems when that second Lord is read correctly as Adoni, the non-deity superior, which that Hebrew word designates so beautifully for us.